Hey and welcome to my chess channel. Listen carefully,
Because
I'm gonna share with you one of the most surprising opening you have with the white pieces, so you can catch any player off guard. It starts with knight f3 instead of the common e4 d4, and therefore your opponents would not be prepared for that. And if they do, and some of them are, to knight f3, the Reti, the King's Indian, the London system in a different order, or this kind of openings. So no, in this tutorial I'm gonna show you e4, which is counterintuitive because you can take it, but if it takes, you go here, putting pressure on the f7 and, by the way, attacking the e4 pawn. The number one reason I like this opening so much is because it's very difficult for black to find the right solutions against your tactical plan on the king side. I have won numerous high-rated players even beyond 2000 with this opening. They were just clueless about what to do in this situation, and if you are not accurate enough, you just get punished on the spot with various tactics, and you will see next. This is the most extensive opening guide that you can find about Tennison Gambit, where I cover everything, all the moves, all the different orders, the different variations, all the tricks, traps and ideas. So stay tuned. Here we start. Most players will commonly play knight f6, which is common move and okay move to protect this pawn. Nonetheless, here you have two main lines to surprise your opponents and catch them off guard. With the first variation I'm gonna guide you through is d3, also commonly known as the Intercontinental Ballistic missile variation, and I will show you next why. And this has a very outrageous trap that works many times, but when it doesn't, then you stuck in a kind of equal, or with one less pawn. It's still playable, but this kind of openings, when you have just one poison pawn and trap to surprise your opponent, I'm not that recommending, especially against advanced players and in tournaments and so on, but rather the other variation that I will show you next in a couple of minutes. But let's start with this d3, attempting taking this pawn. This is just your fake plan that you show to your opponent, and the real mission here is develop the bishop over here. And now most players will take here. Indeed. And when you take back with a bishop, then the most common move for black is h6. But this is a blunder, a big blunder that loses the game on the spot. Now, it's very easy to fall into that trap if you don't know this setup. This is why I recommend doing that, especially in blitz and bullet games. And now this is coming, the sack on f7, but can't take it back, because if he does, boom, this is the Ballistic missile attack. I think this is the reason it's called like this. Like, you brought it here to the base and then you launched it, and now your missile is gonna, the other missile is gonna take the queen, and now you can't go back to protect the queen. And if you go there or there, then whoops, then bam, you got this, and here you're kind of winning. Now, one thing you need to be aware of course, most players will grab the bishop, which is the same mistake like moving to here or moving to there or there, because you grab the queen, right? But one mistake to be aware of is if he plays e5, and many players will do so, with the attempt to discover attack on your queen with check. So you can't stay any longer on this line, and you can't take this bishop. So don't be greedy, because you will get fooled by this discovery attack. So what you should do instead is queen d3 check. This is the best move for white. By the way, don't take even here, because there you have knight c6 and you can end up losing your queen later on. So don't do that. You most likely lose the queen as well. So don't take the bishop, don't take the pawn. Instead, move back to d3. Check. And then, let's say, very common move, black defend. And then you can simply either go to b3, attacking this pawn, going back to the base, protecting this pawn from here, or going check here. I personally prefer check here, because it continues to attack on black and entertain him to move back with the king. Of course, if you protect it with either the bishop or the knight, you gain another minor piece. Okay, so let's say he goes back, and then you can either fork this check and taking this pawn, or simply develop. It's up to you. Another mistake, except h6. Let's say he does something else. g3 to fianchetto, develop your bishop. You can do the same thing. Take here. If takes, take the queen. So either if he takes or run away with the queen, you are winning. Now, not h6 and not g6. So what else? He can play also all sort of stuff. Now, let's say he plays c6 or c5. Not many players will do that, but this is also the same mistake. You need to understand the pattern. The far you recognize this pattern, you can win on the spot very quickly and save your energy, especially in blitz tournaments. It's great to utilize because the key there is to save your energy with quick wins. So, if you recognize beginner player, do that. And you see the same mistake, take here, and you can protect. However, and this is the problematic plan of this idea, is that it relays heavily that black will do one of these mistakes, or I don't know, something like that. Because the moment he moves this e pawn, whether to e6, and many players advanced players will do that, e6 or e5, or moving with the bishop to here, then you lost the opportunity to suck here. Let's say knight c6 first, because if you take there, then you can't launch this missile anymore, because now he's protected by the knight, right? And you just lose material, and he's gonna win, for sure. And the same goes with e6, let's say. You can't take anymore because the same principle. Now he can defend his queen with the king itself. The same is true with e5, right? You can see yourself. So this is only one option to catch your opponent off guard. It works a lot of times against numerous players, especially beginners with blitz and bullet chess, but don't count on it, especially not in classical over-the-board chess. So this was the Basilisk Intercontinental missile attack. Now let's leave it aside and move back to the main Tennison Gambit, which also suggests a lot of tricks, and this is more solid yet. Your second and better options is knight c3. Again, you present a false claim to try to grab this pawn that you sacrificed, but this is not your plan. Your plan is to pressure him over f7, but now not with some dubious attack with d3, right? But with something else, which I'll show you just right away. Most common move for black is defending this pawn and develop the bishop to the king side. Very natural move. Many players will do so. You're already preparing your trick. Now, again, this f7 weakness of black, you utilize again, making pressure. Most players will play e6, and now this tricky move, f3. Your idea is, again, kind of taking here, but this is not your true idea, but you're actually, attempting him to go and grab this pawn, and then queen takes f3. Now, the first immediate threat you have is taking the pawn on b7, but a more indirect threat you have is grabbing this after taking here. So let's say here has several options. Let's say he does h6 again, right? Very common move because he's more concerned about this pawn than this pawn. Here you still take on f7 and then take this bishop on f5. And in this position, you already slightly better. You can see even the eval bar. Now he has several options protecting this pawn. Let's say they do, and many players do, queen d6. Queen d6, protecting that pawn and developing the queen to the most optimal square, kind of. But now what you can do is to knight e4. Now the idea here is moving the pressure over here, placing the rook in f1. You have a lot of pressure on this knight, which eventually you can take, and then so d3, you are totally in advantage and supposed to win. Another mistake black can do besides h6 that we saw previously is c6, preventing you to take on b7, which is not of your main plan anyways. So now you continue with the same idea, forking on f7, takes, and now if he moves to protect this pawn with queen d6 like we saw in the h6 line, here is even worse, because at least with the h6 line, when I do that, I don't have the immediate response to go here and attack this with my knight. It's just only making the pressure over here after castling. It's still a great move, but here is even stronger and wins on the spot, because after you do that, you just, he has to run away, let's say something like that. And now be careful not to sack here. This is a key idea, but not here, because it can take back, and then you can do the forking with a knight because it's pinned to your king. So be aware of that. What you can do instead is doing knight g5 check first, and then you triple your attack on this square, and then I don't know, when he moves back here, or no matter what he does, now you can move here with your bishop. And after doing something like that, let's say, you just castle. And now you're going to have discovery checks, and he's just collapsing, and you have even one pawn up. So totally losing for black. Let's say he does queen d7 right away, okay? And here, what you can do is simply move with your development d3. Okay, so let's say he does something like that. So then you continue with this idea anyways. So queen d6, not great because you have knight e4. And let's say he moves back here. Then you do d3. Now attempting to castle, and of course immediately check here. Okay, so let's say he doesn't do this queen d6, but rather queen d7. Also protecting the pawn, right? So here you do the same move, increasing the pressure on f6 after castling, but immediate threat on this pawn. And then let's say he protects this knight, you can simply check. So most player will do obviously is h6, preventing you from doing that nasty check and tripling attack over the h6 pawn. So what you will do here is continuous development d3, okay, d3, and then still pinned, by the way. Yeah, still pin, don't be panicked by that. And then let's say he continue to protect your upcoming attack over the f6 knight. Now what you can do is castle, because now, be aware by the way, you can't castle before that, before you place the d3 pawn, because then you just lose a piece on the spot. Be aware of that. Don't castle unless you already located your pawn on d3, protecting both your bishop and the knight. So now if he does a check, you're all fine. You go there, and king h1, you are safe, and continue with your attack. And if he doesn't do a check, and let's say, I don't know, do some random move like that to bring his knight over the queen side and attack this weak spot, but you are not threatened by that, because you have so aggressive attack on the king side. What you'll do immediately is taking here with this nice sack, because you see this has two purposes of defending both the knight and the h6 pawn. And if he takes, he simply loses material, and now you're even winning beyond this material, because if he takes back, you just, he's gonna checkmate it very soon. So obviously he will not take with the pawn, even beginner players, and they will take with the rook, right, to add another layer of defense to f6. But here's the fun part. Now you do take here. Remember, when your king was here before castling, then it was very dangerous, because if he takes, you can't do the check because it's pinned. But now it's not pinned anymore, and you can freely do it. If he takes, forking the queen and lose the game. And if he doesn't take, he loses a queen. So, losing immediately. So this is very fun part. What he can do? Move his rook or do b5. In this particular case, you don't want to do the trick and taking here, but rather doing that first. Because if you take right away, you can take your bishop, and this is critical to your mission here. If he does a5, do a3. And if you continue, you are safe on a2, right? And this bishop continue to pin pawn and be very strong on this diagonal. Now let's assume black will play more correctly and utilize the best option for black, which is knight c6. Okay, knight c6, remember? Here you use the same ideas, same principle. However, here you might need to divert your ideas a little bit and adjust them to fully accomplish your mission, to keep the attack on f7 and do it more wisely. So what do I mean by that? Knight c6, you take the same way. And if he takes, you take back, and then you have the active move knight d4, which is more active way to play compared to c6 or a6, right? He brings his attack, he's threatening to fork your rook and king. Of course, he kind of threatening your queen over here and is very active in the main of the board. So here you need to be careful. You can't do the same ideas over and over again, right? Of course, you will lose the queen. So here I recommend two options. Both are good. I prefer the second ones. First option is to keep the tension over here and making a trap for him, as I mentioned, to fork your king and your rook in the queen side. And many players will get alert and actually do that, and by that abandon the defensive part of the knight here in e6. Let's say he goes here, he goes there, and if he takes the rook, you are already winning right away. Of course, almost checkmate. This is the only move. And here you can play either d6 or rook f1. Let's say rook f1. Oh, first do the check here, even better. If he goes here, you do d4 check, and you are gonna mate him very quickly. And likewise, if you move over there, it's the same check. And if you move over here, then you have to bring the rook into the game. And engine shows mate in a6. And even if it takes you slightly more time and more moves than the engine says, 15 moves, you're gonna mate him. You're gonna win him or grab material and you are winning for sure. But decent players will not take here, of course. They will notice the double mission of this knight, and then they, let's say, protect it by moving not here d6, because this is dangerous, remember? Not now, but later down the road after you castle, right? You castle, and then you can bring your knight. And similar ideas, because the tension remains the same. So not d6, but if they move, let's say, as we noticed earlier, queen d7, which is slightly better, then the same thing, you castle. Now, let's say he does knight c5, which is very popular move. Now he doesn't do this attack and forget about this pawn. He stays to defend the pawn, but bring his bishop to the game, which is very common move. And now you can castle, because there you will get some double check and then take here with check, and you will lose the game on the spot. d3 is a common move to release your bishop. Or what you can do is bishop d3. What I prefer is d3 in this position. And you keep the pressure afterwards, pinning the knight to the queen, and then castle long, and then bring one of the rooks over here, keeping the pressure. In this variation, what I like that your queen, especially in bullet and blitz games, your queen is not hanging there. If he moves somehow with a king in a very high-paced chess game, you might forget about a pinned piece, in this case a queen, for a long time, and then, oh, I forget that it's pinned, and then boom, he takes the queen. So in this variation, you have a peace of mind, and you just can enforce the tension and keep moving your pieces and, yeah, building your attack. So this is a very decent progression, but even better move is, instead of queen h3, is queen d3. Now, let's say he does the same story. You don't want to castle under this position. And let's say now he, I don't know. By the way, if he runs away, same trick as before, because this is pinned. So it might be that some players, beginner player, will forget that. So in this case, what you want to do is not castling, but rather queen e4. Remember, these key ideas. It's not that difficult to remember openings as long as you remember the key ideas and just try to remember the nuances, when to use what and when not. But queen e4 is a central part of this opening, right? This spinning is very central part. Of course, the sacrifice of the knight and knight on f7. So remember these principles to use it in your games. So here, knight e4, very strong, targeting both the bishop and the knight. And if he takes here, you simply take back, keeping the pressure, and now you have the open file for the rook. He can't castle, you remember, he moved his king. Let's say, I don't know, they play c6 maybe, or maybe queen d6, then c3, because if you do it at castle short here, he can protect the check with check, right? Now he need to walk away, let's say go here, not here, go here, and then you block all this attempt to interrupt your castle short or do nasty things in discovery, and then let's say he moves there, you can either go here and attack the queen or check here, and then you have a mating force. You have a lot of options to mate him and at least winning in material. Nice attack here. Let's say move here. You see the pressure you already have here. Now you have check. And if he goes back here, you have the 7th line on your hand. And yeah, he's devastated. What he can do here. Knight, king c8. And then you take. And he's finished. You can double your rook afterwards. You can take there. Yeah, he's finished. So this is slightly better. It complicates things up a little bit. But if you stay accurate with either queen h3 or queen d3, you are still winning. What of instead going back right away or doing something with the queen, as I noted earlier? What if he wants to protect the e6 pawn, not with a rook, which seems reasonable, right? But the only problem here that he neglected this pawn later. Do not take it now, but later. What you can do is c3 again, and if he comes back, d4, and then taking here. And now he's finished even in a more radical fashion, because now not only you can bring your rook into the game after blocking his attack, but also your queen is better positioned and you grab one more pawn. What if black finds the right move, which is not exactly easy, to say the least? What happened if he does, after knight c6, of course, is the main good line for black. You take, but now instead of taking here and seeing what we have explained so far, let's say he moves knight d4, allowing you to take his queen, but you lose the queen in return with check. And there you take, he takes, and then it's playable, but it's kind of equal, and you still have possibilities to win. In every chess game, you do d3 to block his attack on c2, and let's say he does d6, and you can go with the bishop here, pinning the knight, and then castling in the queen side, and you still have the opportunity to attack this weakened spot, and with all your minor pieces, and maybe to bring your knight over here to e4, and if he takes, you unite your isolated pawn. We have ideas here, even though it's equal game. But this is only if he finds the best move. Only a handful of players will actually do so, even advanced players. Now, this is the first option he has to refute your gambit, even though you are still equal. So it's not exactly a refutation, but so not knight to d4, but rather queen d4, which is very difficult move to find. But if you find that, and his idea is to take him here, if you take the rook in the corner, he takes there. And now all these pieces and would most likely to be taken by his rook. However, you can still continue playing like the previous line, d3, and you have your chances, but this is the best move for black across the board, and now he has advantage. You can see in the evaluation bar, minus 1.06. But you can still win this, right? You're not that losing. Now let's say he does check here, and you move there, and then he moves here. You want to be careful, so you do something like that, targeting this pawn. Not many players will find even knight d4, so even more so queen d4. So because think about it, beyond logic, beyond common sense. When you see that, first of all, you want to take the threat, because you don't see all the complication lines. And if not, you might counter-attack. Some people will do that. But bringing the queen to attack a minor piece in return to your rook, this is a very advanced way of thinking. But other than that, you are most likely to win. Now we go to the lines that are not knight f6. Most players play knight f6, no doubts about that. But if he does not play that, and now I will quickly overview other variations, then you can use this move, knight e2, because here it makes sense. Why? First of all, you superficially plan to take it on e4, and that's why then in another move's order, black will play knight f6. But here you have a nice tricky move, because your ideal spot is here, not there. And some player will actually miss that is a forking check. And let's say they do something like that, and you win material on the spot. And you're gonna take that afterwards, and you have the same ideas you have, but just now you have one minor piece up, which is absolutely winning. Now, those who will notice that, also forking this b7, they might just either come back or go with the queen. If he goes with the queen, then you can take here. If he goes back, here you have tricks. Again, those good players, trained players, will find the difficult moves to find and will eventually probably get a slightly better advantage. However, at this moment, a lot of players will fall into various traps you put in the queen side. Now you take here, and then he's thinking about moving away your queen, but you are not going to run away. You do this hilarious move, bishop b5, pinning the bishop to his king, and now he can't take the queen. This is very nice. Let's overview the different possibilities. If he wants to go here to double the protection over the bishop, then what you can do is simply taking here. And now if he takes with a knight, then you grab material. Check, and if you go there, you just can exchange and you're up 5 points off material. Or if he goes back with a knight, you just grab another material and you're winning. But if he doesn't take with a knight, but rather with a queen, can't you find it? Take a second. Checkmate in one. Boom. Out of nowhere. Checkmate in one. That's so beautiful, checkmate. So black, especially on online chess, when the moves are playing very quick, this can be very tricky to find the most accurate move, right? So bishop b5, and then you already have an advantage. So let's say he doesn't do this critical mistake, but rather take your queen. Not your queen, he can't. Take your bishop. This is a common move. And here you can either take back the bishop and remain your slight advantage, or be greedy and take the rook and still remain a bit slighter advantage. But either way, you are up in material, +2, and you are fine. You're gonna take here, and if you go there, you can simply exchange queens, and you should win this. Some players will play queen d5, attacking your knight and defending this pawn altogether. Now here, you also have some tricks. If you remember this laser defense by moving the key move d3 from the first earlier version I showed you with a nice trap. This way you protect this knight, and then if he takes, thinking that he can outsmart you and take here, but then if he takes here, oops, you didn't lock his queen, though it seems that way. You can move here, right? But you have queen g4, and if he does move to queen g4, you simply grab his queen and taking advantage of the material. You're gonna take this rook and develop your pieces, and you're gonna win this. Now let's say he does bishop g4. Is kind of tricky move, right? Because he is now targeting your queen, and if you take, you can simply, by the way, get advantage by material, but you don't want that. This is boring, and you have far better moves here. You have queen d5. Now you still have your battery protecting the rook and attacking the queen, and he's locked. Now he's really locked. If he moves here, you just take it. So he's losing a queen. f5, right? Protecting it with a pawn, not with a bishop, and not with a knight. Some players will play that. However, as you already notice yourself, now you do the same idea, right? The Caesar attack on f7, but now everything is open. So in a way, it's even more vicious. So what you can do, let's say he does e6, which is only move secondary to knight over h6. But let's say he does e6. So first of all, you just can take it. And this is what I do in most cases. So either you can take with a knight, or continue with similar idea with d3 and protecting your knight and keeping the pressure as it is, right? So this is another possibility. If you move something like that, then you take. Then you keep the pressure. This is kind of the principle of this Tennison Gambit. So either get advantage by keeping the tension or by simply grabbing the material here. And you're up a material, you're also attacking this, and he is in a problem. So we have seen what happens when he goes f5, bishop c4, and then e6. What if he does knight h6 to defend this threat, right? The only other option. But here you have a ruthless trick. Knight takes h7. This is hilarious, right? Because if he takes, you come here with your queen, and now there is no fender over here. So if he goes g6, you just take it with a fork on the rook, and he can't defend it because you take it with a bishop. Of course, he can't go back with the knight because you can either choose or to grab the rook or to take here. I think it's better taking here. You can also taking here, it's even more so, and then take there. So you take both the rook and the knight, and it's totally finished. And you can maybe even checkmate him here somewhere down the road in the queen side. King d7. But even here, what you can do is queen g6, keeping the attack, right? And still threatening to take his rook in the side. You're already better as the Valbar. And so if he runs away with the rook, you can just turn the material, something like this. You take a material for free, and now you're equal in material again, and you have a massive attack. So let's say he does something like that, then you come back here, check, and if you take here, you take it there, and then you grab the rook. And if you continue to trip over the board, which is not recommended anyways, then you can start do whatever you want, right? To attack him. And you're equal in material already. You can do check and then grab his queen. So remember the travel of your queen to make his king to travel. One more thing before we closure all this amazing, surprising opening. Based on Lichess databases, the most common response is d5. Together, however, a very common response to this is, and this I also face personally playing online, is avoiding getting into the reti in the first place. And I can understand that. Always you want to, no matter the color you play, you want to avoid traps and surprising opening of the opponent and be in your own comfort zone. Knight f6 is trying to do exactly that. However, you can get to the same position, to the same setup with transposition, and this happens to me a lot. So what I do here, instead of playing d4 or g3 and going into the King Indian or the normal London system or something like that, queen pawn, I do knight c3. I keep the development in a way that I can further go back to my Tennison Gambit, and then what you do, not d4, not g3, d4, and then oh yeah, why not to grab a pawn, and then knight g5, you get into the same setup of the Tennison Gambit, just in a different move order. And most players always play this, and then you move your bishop, and so on and so on, and then this furious attack on f7. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a setup I played so many times, more than 100 in the time span that I spent on chess.com and also in Lichess, and gained many victories and surprise opponents, even strong beyond 2000, even some 2100. They were just shocked by this setup. I recommend the main line, not the Ballistic attack, but if you want to have fun, you can start with these two. And so I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this. I will make more tutorials. I just published a poll. If you didn't see, answer the poll. It helps me to know what kind of unconventional tutorials opening to do for you. So check this poll and fill it with what is the best move for white for you. What is the most difficult response of black that you struggle with. So answer the polls so I could gather more opening tutorials. And I also plan to share some mindset hacks that serves me very efficiently to gain advantage over other players, both over the board and online. I used to play over the board for several years, won several tournaments, and for years here online. So subscribe for these videos. And if you haven't watched already my top performing video guide about the Knightovich defense, knight c6 with black against e4 to refute e4, watch this video. So bye for now and see you there.